Well, greetings, everyone. I'm Linda Cry here with Action Coach XL Edge, and this is the Business Spotlight series. And we are just pleased to bring different owners and business leaders to the spotlight. And today we are going to meet David Dickinson and learn a little bit more about his company, Bankers Compliance. And so, David, I just want to first of all thank you for giving of your valuable time and spending some time with us today.
Lynn, it's my pleasure, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And I hope that we have a tremendous conversation. I think we're going to. I'm looking forward to this. So
Beautiful,
thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, let's just start with, how did you even start a business or go into business for yourself? What brought you to that decision? Because that certainly has been an important one for you over the years.
I might be wrong, but I think it was Thomas Edison that said something like, I failed my way to success. And I am the living example of that. I actually got fired from a banking job. And I always tell people, when they ask me about this entrepreneur spirit, I say, no, I was unemployed for about 3 hours and realized I need to put food on the table. And I started this consulting company. It's quite a long story in a sense, but I emotionally said, all right, 3 hours is enough. Get over that. Let's get moving. And I knew what my skill set was. And quite honestly, I started out in a very humble card table, card chair. I wasn't seeing this 31 years later is where I'm at today. But I started in the back of a barber shop, literally on some borrow thing, thinking I'll do this for a while until I find a real job. And now you see 31 years later. So, but it's worked out okay, I guess.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great story. Great story. That forcing function, again, keeping it real, led you to clearly an opportunity to guide others. So a bit about that. Over the years, what might be some surprises for you around running a business and maybe some misconceptions?
Taxes would be one. Had no idea. We deal in multiple states, and understanding tax systems and having to understand tax systems is one. Number two was, and I'll just say it, I was a horrible manager or boss, and I expected people to have the same drive that I had, and follow me. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I was actually in the military, enlisted, got out, went back in as an officer. And the old military mindset of never let them see you sweat, right, was how I tried to run the company. Doesn't work real well outside of the military, is what I've learned. And somewhere around 2008, so 15 years into this, I realized that I had a revolving door of people. And I realized that problem was not them, but rather me. And I read, I think it was John Maxwell. It said something like, there's a lid on every organization, and that lid is you. And so I thought, all right, I've got to get better. And I actually had at my disposal, well, not disposal, but I had an opportunity with all these clients. And some banks have great leaders and that I admired. And so I started asking them, if I'll take you to lunch, will you spend some time with me and we can talk about leadership and what you do different? How is this bank different than that one across the street? Linda, I wish I would have wrote a book in 2008. I'm pretty sure if I did, it would have been where I could now be sitting on an island somewhere enjoying, a refreshment. But I wrote this down after probably talking to 25 or 30 different leaders, and it was this: winning organizations have a culture of communication. And I never thought about putting that into a book because I was just trying to apply it to my life and how to be a better leader. And it really does come down to communication. I've never heard anybody say that, they just communicate too much. I'm out of here, right? Normally it's the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. People don't feel like they've been heard, those types of things. And so I started implementing things to change our culture. And today we use that word, so back then in 2008, it was probably more about core values and vision statements and things like that. But I started working on the culture and changing behaviors is what I call it. And starting with me, excuse me. So that's kind of maybe more than you thought here, but I could go on and on and on because that's not only become a practice in our company, but something I'm very passionate and I try to help as a consultant when I walk into boardrooms or senior management of banks and try to help them with culture. I think it's the number one issue and the secret sauce, if you will, that separates one business from another.
Yeah, beautiful. And to your point, communication is a process.
Yes.
Right. So we think about it as well as about people and process. And
right. It starts with trust.
It does.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You said.
Yes. No, truly, it does start with trust and building trust.
if you don't have the trust, and how does trust get built? Usually it's spending time together and
Absolutely.
communicating, right? So there's this non-vulnerable kind of communication at first, and we get to know each other. Uh, so I'm going to step back again. What's my job? I see myself as the chief culture officer.
Nice.
And I have a little play on that. Is it Covey that wrote Good to Great? I hope that have that right. Talks about getting the right
Collins.
people on the bus and
Collins.
right. It's Collins. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Collins.
Yeah, excuse me. So, so Collins talks about I see myself in the sense as the bus driver, and that making sure that we're headed in the same direction and doing the right things and giving people the ability to be over here, but the bus is headed this way. And then I'll run that just a little further. The bus driver also has cargo, and that's the people and the team members. And so I take that pretty seriously that we love on them. And I'll say that on purpose. We don't, we're doing life together if you come to work at Bankers Compliance Consulting. You spend a lot of time with the people you work with. So you should be doing life together, not just having a job, we call it. So
Right, love that. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you look for as you bring on team members and then invest in them to love on them and do life together?
yeah. So first off, this might surprise you, but I don't need another me. A little bit of Dave goes a long ways. So I like to say I like to find people that think differently. And you can do the Myers-Briggs and all the different types of those types of things, but I want to find people that actually maybe make me pause and think. I actually hired a hairdresser one time and put her in charge of, in the sense of all of our marketing materials. Why? Because as bank consultants, we're pretty left-brain people, and we don't normally have stereotypically the soft skills. Whereas a hairdresser, and it happened to be a friend that I knew, and she was working for a salon that was closing down, and I said, "Come with me." And we also do conferences and seminars, in-person things. And she was the best hostess that I've ever had. And in a sense, completely thinks different. So then I have another philosophy. I want to say, we call it Knights of the Round Table. I want to hear from everybody because everybody has an opinion. Now, it's not a democracy where I get to say, you decide. But if I get people to give me their say in, their way in, then they're more likely to buy in when a decision is made. So to answer your question, I'm looking for people that think different, that are willing to speak up. We got to develop that trust, but know that they want to be a vocal leader in a sense and help out, not just checking a box. And our interview process is 3 to 6 months on average for our team members. I probably do 25 to 30. Now, not just all me, some of our other team members, but you're joining a family if you join this company.
Right.
And we don't use the word staff, by the way. The old joke is staff is an infection. We use the word team member. You can use that if you like. We use the word team members. And it truly is, when you introduce somebody as a partner or as a team member, you notice they just stand a little taller. And that's not just for kicks. It's truly, we treat each other like team members. And again, doing life together. So it all comes down to me, and I'm going to steal from Dave Ramsey. I heard him say one time that he's got a corral of stallions and he doesn't let any donkeys in his corral. And that's my job, is to make sure that we don't let any donkeys in. Because one person, and our company's about 15 team members, one person can change the culture in a smaller business like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I also hear this lifelong learning approach in you. Talk more about that. How did you invest in you and develop your skill sets to gain some of these insights?
Well, I always say that yesterday I was so dumb. I'm just always looking to be teachable with part of it. I think that is instilled from my parents, that everybody has something to teach me. And maybe we've even had a similar experience, but I think it's wrong when I say, I know how you feel. No, I probably don't know how you feel. You have a different filter, a different lens, a different view on everything. And so surrounding yourself with smart people, successful people, and being teachable, asking questions. One of the joys of my job, one of the opportunities is I travel over this country and speak at different associations and things, and finding out, why did you vote for this person? Or what do you think of this? And I'll go into politics and religion, and a lot of people just shun away from that. And it's not to cause an argument. It's to find out, why do you think the way you think? And most of the time I come away like, wow, I've never thought of that perspective or thing. So we may not agree. In fact, what's the old saying? I don't have to see eye to eye to walk hand in hand.
Yeah.
I think is what it is. And I love that. We can have unity without unison, right? In fact, I'll do a parallel to music. Music's pretty boring if everybody's saying unison. It's the conductor that brings together all these different parts of playing, but they're singing from the same sheet of music at the same tempo. And to me, that's what I try to do that with life in a sense, is celebrate that. And I think I'm a better person because I'm willing to hear others' opinions and teach me. So, yeah, I'll go back, gosh, 2008 or so when I started interviewing these different people. It was teach me, teach me. And today I feel like I'm probably one of the better teachers on the topic of culture and organizational health and things. Not because I invented any of it, probably assembled and then done some life in the trenches, if you will, with it myself. So
Love
yeah.
that. Love that. So taking all that energy and all that experience, how do you play it forward and pass it on? What's next for you? What does
Wow.
that look like?
You know what? I'm going to give you an analogy, actually a true story. When I was 26 years old, I was attending a church, and the pastor of that church was actually leaving. And he took me over to a different church, and he introduced me to a pastor there. And I'll tell you the story, and then I'll explain it in case you don't know. But he introduced me. He said, Paul, to the pastor, this is your Timothy. Timothy, this is your Paul. Now, let me stop there. I'll pause the story. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul had a young man named Timothy that he was mentoring, if you will. And so he was introducing us that way. And then he turned to me and he said, back to the story, he said, always have a Paul and always have a Timothy in your life. It's a pretty good gift. And I have followed that. I can't necessarily walk up to a young man and say, I want to be your Paul, right? But I'm always open. And I'm a hunter education instructor. I was a youth wrestling coach. I've tried to be involved in people's lives. I'm on several different types of committees like that help out the Nebraska Committee for Economic Education, for instance, and try to surround myself where there's opportunities maybe to invest in young people and have some mentees. And just today at lunch, met with my mentor. I have about 4 people that I meet with regularly, but one of them, and it's still that same Paul, by the way, that I met about 30 years ago almost. He's still an influence on my life and a great influence. So anyway, so I don't know if that answers your question in a sense, but if you have somebody that you're answering to, and then second, if you have people that you're guiding, it will keep you a little more straight and narrow, I think, on the right path of some of the choices that we have sometimes. And not that I haven't made some bad choices in my life, but there's normally, if there's an accountability to others, I think, and I like to say also just working for a higher cause, something bigger than myself is what helps me keep usually things on the straight and narrow, or passion gets me out of bed in the morning.
Beautiful. Yeah, that meaning and purpose in life, right?
Right.
The why, and not so much the what I do, it's why I do what I do.
Exactly.
Meaning and
Yeah.
purpose.
I mean, and again, I don't know that there's anything of these that I can say I came up with, but I heard a gentleman one time say, if you're going to work to get the money so you can buy the food, so you can go to work so you get the money so you can buy the car, so you go to work to get the money to buy the, there's more to life than that. And I'm not saying that everything at work is fulfilling. Sometimes it's hard. It's just work, right? But there should be some sense of fulfillment from work. I hope that you can love what you do. And that may not be, I mean, for some of the listeners on this, maybe they're starting out, it's just about putting food on the table. And you got to get through that. On the other end of the spectrum are these people that are passionate, that say, I want to find this job or my passion. There's a lot of people that think they can sing well. You'll see them on different, voice and different, they're never going to put food on the table, and they have a passion, right? So you can maybe do that as a hobby, but if you can find where your passion and your strengths, match, or that's a great thing, but go after what puts food on the table first is what I'd say. And then hopefully you can find out that position where, or that place where you can match both those together. And I think I have, but on the other hand, if the only fulfillment you get is from work, I would say you're probably out of bounds.
Yeah.
So there's this balance, right? That we have to have some outside things and people involved in our lives. So anyway, I feel like I could go on and on about that one too.
No, it's good. It's that, do you live to work or work to live type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I listen for when I hear people say, well, I'm just so busy and I've got to do all these things so I can have all this stuff and then I'll be happy. And
When is
usually
that?
there's an emptiness
Yeah,
there, right? There's a void versus, who do I need to become with
yeah,
meaning and purpose to do some important work
yeah,
to have, reward, meaningful life. It could be material things too, whatever that is.
yeah,
So yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
There's a balance there, right?
oh,
Yeah.
always,
It's
always.
and yeah, go ahead.
Curious about if you were to give some advice to your younger self, David,
Hmm.
and you get to decide what might that advice to your younger self be?
Hmm. Well, and I'd like to say, boy, spend more time with family and keep things in boundaries, but I don't know I'd be where I'm at today. I mean, no one, the old saying, right? No one says, I just wish I worked more. No, that's not it. But I don't believe anything happened by accident. And I think that in maybe some of the trials became a better Dave, if you will. So it's really hard to go back and say, I would change this and I would change that. Um, I do think that I probably overworked sometimes, and my kids didn't ask for, dad to be gone and things like that. Those were tough. I probably erred on that side, but again, I don't know that I would got to where I'm at now without putting in those dues. And so it's a tough thing. So what would I tell myself? I would have changed in a sense earlier about being a better boss. I think that once that I started changing the culture, and by the way, there was a consequence to that. There were some people that worked as part of this team that didn't like the sudden changes, and they left. But I think today we're
Okay.
much better. So,
Yeah, that's okay.
and I actually had a gentleman that worked for me that was kind of an old school boss. I learned a lot from him. Not necessarily what I would want to do today, though. So are those mistakes? Not necessarily. So I struggle with the question of saying I would do this and this different, because I think if I did that, I wouldn't be here now. So I don't know that I would change anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not so much as it's a change as what did you learn? What
Oh,
insight did you gain? And you touched on it. It's like I,
yeah.
would maybe think about this differently and adjust the culture earlier and such.
Yes, definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful.
And so it was learning how to manage people. Is it, the old, you've heard this before, they're good car salesmen, so they make them the sales manager. That's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
A different skill set, right?
Yeah.
And I had to develop that. So I knew that I was doing a good job as a consultant and able to do that work, but then to manage the people is a whole big different step. And I had to learn that part. And a lot of times through trial and error, and that means that maybe some people didn't last or left that I wish we had back, those kind of things. So, yeah, the management of people, whole different skill set,
It is.
than running a business.
It is.
Anyway, so that's my personal journey, and now I'm learning how to pass that, how to hand off that baton to the next generation of leaders. And it's hard when 31 years I've created this entity, if you will, and to give that up. But I have a sign right up here that I put in this position so that I can look at it often. It says, it's my responsibility to awaken the possibility in others.
Nice.
And that has become kind of a life motto for me. It's my responsibility to awaken the possibility in others. Trying to do that, not always smooth. Right? And letting them make mistakes and learning from those things, right? Yeah. So
For sure, for sure. I believe that as well, right? The only failure is if one chooses not to participate in anything in life. And if we could
good point.
learn from everything else, we're obviously going to grow.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure you don't have to answer this, but some of my greatest lessons have been in failure. And it's
Right.
okay to say, you know what, I suck at that. That's okay. And I've had people that were great consultants that said they also wanted to do the training, the teaching, and that's a different skill set.
Mhm.
And we've had people that we invested them and we help them and we teach them, and they get on the stage the first time and they just bomb. And they say, you know what, I'm done. I'm like, wait a minute. First off, we can try again. But I actually had a person one time that bombed really badly, and she called me and said, I quit. And I said, well, wait, why would you quit? And she said, it was so horrible. And I said, no, we found out that you're not good at that. That's okay. That's a victory.
Right.
Now let's just focus you here instead of there. I mean, so learning that you don't do something well isn't necessarily a failure.
No.
I used to have a
Discovery.
saying, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a discovery.
It's yeah. And the old saying of better to shoot for the stars and miss than aim for a pile of manure and hit.
That's good.
If you, I
That's
think that was
good.
in my yearbook in my senior year
Oh
of high
gosh.
school a long
Okay.
time ago. So
Love that. Love that.
yeah.
So what is then, as you're thinking about, moving to what's next for you, where's the challenge and the opportunity in that today?
Yeah. So again, 15 people. I've got a family, a team that I feel responsible for. And they're not children. They're adults, but I have a responsibility to take care of them. And so we've got the right leaders in place, I think, and passing that baton to them so that we can take care of the rest of the team. And this business is bigger than me. That's what it really comes down to. And we've got clients that we need to take care of. And so passing that baton to them, getting out of the way. So that's the challenge, if you will. And then there's always, obviously, there's the whole, how do I step out? Is it my image that's associated? In fact, let me go off on a little tangent there. I actually have some clients that know some of our team members better than they know me. In fact, they might think that, I'll throw out the name Jared Moyers, the head of our training. There's a lot of people think Jared owns the company. I love that. Because what do you want when you have people on your team? You want them to act like an owner, right? And Jared does that so well. And there's several of the consultants that people have found out that they didn't own the company. And I'm like, no, that's great that they thought, if you think somebody on my team owns the company, that tells me that team member is doing a great job of representing, right? So helping that transition, that was, again, not just a job, but a career, and we're doing life together, and instilling that in the people and working for something bigger than themselves is very rewarding to me. But now I'm looking at trying to exit out of that. It's not that I have a lack of things to do either. There's plenty to do. It's making sure that this is done well and transitions is the challenge.
Curious if you have a date in mind for your exit strategy. Are you working towards something, or is that yet to be determined?
So my birthday is in March, and I've got a sticky on the wall over there that says March 29. That's why I looked over there. That's the date. It took me about a year to write that date down, though. My coach kept asking me, when's the date so we can work backwards? And that was hard. But I committed it, wrote it on sticky note, March of 29. Now, contact me in April and see if I held to that.
There you go.
We'll see. We'll see.
Well, you referenced a coach. You've invested in a coach. Talk about the value of that. For anybody that might be watching or listening, can you share a bit on that?
Well, go back to the Paul Timothy analogy, right? Of having somebody that is, and that's different as a mentor, maybe. But yeah, I have an outside coach that, in a sense, is not emotionally involved in the business, but yet can stand back and look. And so, in fact, how this came about was this coach was someone that I had observed coaching another, actually my church, and I had seen him in action. And then I looked at, I'll ask him to help me with the succession plan. And he came in and said, you know what, let's not worry about succession right now. Let's get your company healthy. And the last couple of years have been some of the best years we've had. So that's obviously done well. And now we're moving towards succession planning. So back to the coaching, gosh, there's just so many things I could go on and on about the benefits of having an independent, someone that's not emotionally involved, doesn't get all the drama that we often get inside of business, right? And things like that. And they can speak into me. And he also meets with our key personnel. He meets with all of our teams sometimes and represents me that way, and provides some of the challenges and things that maybe I'm facing. We'll talk about them. I don't want to say I pass off things, but sometimes having another voice say it in a different way, and having a different, again, just a different voice say some of the things that we're trying to accomplish is helpful to have that reinforcement.
Yes,
So I'm all about having a coach, and wish I'd have done that years ago.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm very congruent in that space with you. I invest as well.
Mm,
And it really is, multiplying people and not diminishing them. And,
yes.
lead by example, and see that as an investment, working the agenda that's in front of you, which should be your business owner or your business leader. Yeah, love that.
And helping you refine that, right? And what's urgent versus important, those kinds of things, and helping you make the decision. So that, in fact, one of the first things that my coach did was said, let's find more margin for you. Let what you not have to be working on and freeing up so that I could spend more time looking at vision and working on the business, right? And you're shaking your head. You're probably, that's the, you know how important that is.
It
The
is.
problem is I kept filling up the bucket every time we'd emptied out. And one day, in fact, in front of my whole team, he said, "Dave is so good. He's amazing and just wonderful at filling up the time that we keep creating for him." So
The law of vacuum. We do that. Yes, we do
yes,
that.
yeah.
We meet people that way as well, business owners, business leaders, and their answer sometimes is just working more hours. And then, then they wonder why they're not able to get home to their families, or their families get the leftovers, and that's draining. And so it is working on the business and sorting that out.
Right.
I'm curious, where does your energy come from, David? What do you do to keep that level of energy?
I've often said I think I'm the ADHD poster child. I just am wound this way. In fact, if you met me 30 years ago, I might have been even crazier busy. Yeah, gosh, I would say working for something bigger than yourself, part of it. Seeing the why behind, you know, I'll give you an analogy. I have a son that's now a project manager, construction company, and he was doing an internship. I think it was between his freshman and sophomore year, and he was down in Kansas, literally digging a pipeline ditch for a sewage system in a town. And he called me up, and he's like, "I'm 30 feet in the ground, and I'm digging, and it's hot." And I said, "Son, you're not digging a pipeline. You're actually building a city." And he stopped and he thought, and I said, "If you think about things that way, what's the why? What's the purpose behind this? If we look at that, you're actually building a city. And if you see it that way, there's more purpose then, I think. So that's probably when I start to get down a little bit on what am I doing here? And so one of our models, we take complicated regs and we turn them into plain English. We are trying to make life easier for our clients as banks and the banking laws and things. So how can we help? If they have a headache, we have the aspirin. So think about it that way, if you will. And then it's not about sales. It's not about, it's about providing solutions. And I like to say we're kind of the Yoda, we're the guide, if you will, that is helping people. We don't have to be the hero. We can be the guide that helps. And that's just some ways that I look at it. And those are fulfilling, and there's a passion there because we're always, communicating, building relationships first is another thing. And when you do that, I think we talked before this actually started recording about building relationships before you need them is another thing. And I love that. Instead of just tasks. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little concerned about post-COVID world that where most of us are working from home and we're isolated as much. So I appreciate we can do this by video even. That's nice, but I feel like things are headed south, if you will, in the sense that we're wired for relationships. And so that's what drives me is the relationships and making an impact. Maybe again, being the Paul for some other Timothy, if you will, investing in others. That's
beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a lot there, friend, and a lot of wisdom, insights, and application. So I'm confident that anyone listening to this has picked up some valuable nuggets of lesson and insight. So thank you for taking the time and sharing that with us. I really appreciate it, David.
Kind of you to say. I could talk a lot about each one of those more. In fact, I was saying beforehand too, I'm trying to write a book to write down these things my children have asked for. I have 4 grandchildren now, and I start thinking about legacy when you get to be my age and I don't know that everybody will ever read the book. That isn't important to me, but I've started to write down some of these things and articulate them so that I can hand those to my children and grandchildren and pass on those things. So yeah, you caught me at a good time in the sense I've been writing and writing and writing. I don't know how many pages I have right now on these things of what drives me. So hopefully I can get those captured. I don't know that I'll ever finish the book is the problem. So I have so many things to say,
And
but
maybe
I'll let
that's
you
the
know if I
beautiful
do.
part. Maybe you don't finish it and you let your readers finish it, right? That's another way to think about it.
Yeah, that's good. The continuing
Beautiful.
story. Yeah,
there you go.
good one.
Well, it's been a joy and a gift to me. Thank you very much. And hopefully there'll be others that will gain value as well.
I hope so. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here with your audience and you. So thanks.
Thank you, David.